Hello, hello. I hope this all goes through okay. I'm going to give it just a second to get up to date with me, and then I will get started. Thank you everyone for being here. And if you are here, send me a heart in the chat, and that way I know everyone's here and excited. I am new to live streaming. I'll introduce myself in just a moment, but I am new to it and we are figuring out all the technical interactions as we go. One program talking to another program, whether or not they will talk to each other. So we're getting all that done and so exciting. Okay, looks like we're live. I will get started then, and thank you so much for your patience as we figure all this out. My name is Anna East. I am a product designer, content creator, and artist, and I work for MoxieBox Art. And actually, this here is my art. It's a large scale version of the style of art that students and artists will be learning through the lesson that I'm so excited to share with you called Seashore Pour. So, what is MoxieBox art? Well, some of you may be new to this, and I know a lot of people watching this video will also be coming in from Alaska. So hi everyone from Alaska. I did live in Skagway for a bit, and so I'm also very excited to present to you all as well, and get back in touch with everyone there. So if you've never heard of MoxieBox, but you want your child or your young artists to learn how to create new art styles, and they're really excited, MoxieBox is a fantastic solution. MoxieBox Art was created to have a solution for students and artists that may not have access to an art teacher or materials, or have no art background, or they're really interested in art but they can't seem to access a class or a group or some way to learn more. So we have all of our art materials are in a box, which I will show you in just a moment. Here's the front view of one of our Moxie boxes. And I wanted to kind of tell everyone about what you can expect from MoxieBox 2. So we've got over 20 different lessons, and each lesson introduces a new artist, a new medium, or a new art movement. The box style, the lesson style that we're going to be going over today is called Seashore Pour. This is a fluid art style, and it's abstract. It also has a collage element, and it's really great. I can't wait to express and tell you all about how Moxie boxes are interwoven with so many different types of lessons for students and artists to learn. So let's see. One important thing is that everything that a student would need to complete a complete keepsake art piece, like this here, is included within the box. So that means all of the materials, the lesson manual itself, so the teacher is going to be in the box too. We also have included support like slideshows. Let's see. Slideshows, we have videos online on our website, MoxieBoxArt.com, and we also have something really awesome called MoxieU, which I'll talk about a little bit later, for students to continue their learning if they're really interested in that subject. So let's get started a little bit more. I'm going to move my screen here, and like I said before, this is my first time live streaming, so bear with me as I figure out how all of this works. Let's see here. I'm gonna make myself not so big. There we go. Moving here. Wonderful. Also, and there's my arm. I would love to have a question and answer at the end, so if you have any questions, please stick around. I'm hoping to keep this about 45 minutes long, so I know we started a few minutes late, but I'm hoping to wrap it up around then. So if you've got any questions, please send them in the chat and we will answer them all at the end. Okay, so there we go. I think that's a good size for me. Seashore Pour. All right, and I'm gonna come this way. I'm gonna move my camera this way so I can still be on screen. There we go. Okay, MoxieBox Art, Seashore Pour. This is one of our new lessons for 2024. I'm so excited. I got to be one of the key creators for this lesson, and my heart is really in it. And I'm excited to share it with some Alaska family because it all connects to water and the ocean and our personal connection with the water too. It asks students and artists about their personal connection as they go through the lesson. So without further ado, when you open up the box, it's going to look like this. And I have opened up some things prior to just to save ourselves some time. So each lesson comes with fantastic, they're so beautiful, these manuals here. And this is the 9th through 12th manual that I have with me. So this is going to be the most advanced version of this lesson. And every lesson does come in K through 12. So that's something that we always love to make everyone very sure about and reassure that every single lesson will have a version of kindergarten through 12th grade, except for a few that are only for younger grades and a few that are only for older grades, but that will be very clearly specified. So the majority of them will be adapted for every level. So with 9th through 12th, I'll show you a bit of this manual. It opens up, typically you'll have some kind of historical or artist lesson where you can get some background on what you're learning and why. There will be a pacing guide, all of your materials that were included within the kit itself. And this one is actually, it's very important. I'll show you how to set up your box for this. There's a few different lessons that require very careful setting up so that you keep your space nice and clean and clear, and small hands can be confident that no matter what they do to make a mess, it can be cleaned up at the end. So, all right, before we get into the lesson, I'm going to set up my space. I'll show you what's inside of the box. So all of the lessons get this awesome craft paper. I'm going to lay this down underneath my box in just a moment. This specific lesson comes with this beautiful bag that has all of these materials inside. We've got a pencil here. We've got, let's see, a beautiful swipe tool. This is important for the technique that we're going to be learning today. Oh, a whole bag of sand. I do love this here. We'll see why we need that in a moment. This is one of my favorite parts of this lesson, are all the gorgeous seashells that each student gets. So every single student gets their own assortment of beautiful seashells. And if you want to put your own inside too, that's great as well. Let's see. Got some craft glue, very, very important. Every student needs craft glue. Okay. We also have these cups. These will be used for a setup and also for different levels of mixing paints. Paper towels, also very essential. And the best part of it all, our beautiful pour paints. So one thing that I do love about MoxieBox is that, oh, and a sticker. You can't forget the sticker. But the thing that I love about MoxieBox is that students are going to receive materials for the lesson that might be more expensive to actually get started. If you were to go out and buy this whole set of paints, it's probably going to cost you the same price for the paints as it will the entire box with the lesson, with the canvas, with the seashells, all your other tools. It's a lot more affordable, in my opinion, to get started in a form of art, which I do love about this company. So before I take that apart, we just have our canvas. Oh, I almost forgot. This is our practice page, which I'll show you in a moment. And this is for various levels. Some of the levels are going to be doing observational drawing. Some of them will be focusing on composition instead, but every student gets the chance to draw their own seashells and work on observational drawing themselves. And you can also cut them out and use them as a part of your collage art later on. All right, so I pre-opened all of these paints because I want to make sure that it was quick and easy to show you all how to do things here. All right. Okay, so setting up the space is really important for this one. It's important for pretty much all of the projects, but this one, if you use the materials that we have provided, it makes for a much cleaner space in the end. All right, so first I'm going to lay down my craft paper. Okay. And while I'm doing this, I encourage students and artists and their parents and teachers to think about the closest ocean to you, or the closest river, or the closest waterway, lake perhaps, and your memories there. Think about that kind of stuff, because that is what we'll be thinking of while we create this piece. Okay, so I'm going to put my box on top of the craft paper. All right, and if I had a little bit more space, I'm kind of showing you everything here. I might turn the paper slightly, but for this point of this lesson right now. I'm just gonna leave it here, right underneath, so it's protecting my table. Okay, then I'm going to take these, this plastic. It came with the paints inside. It's a little bit sneaky, but it's very important. Take this out, and I'm going to lay this inside of the box. So the students for this lesson are going to be painting inside the box. It's the easiest way to store the art piece while it's drying, and it is the easiest way for cleanup to happen. So I'm going to lay this across like so. Okay, I'm gonna tuck it in too. Really make sure it's tucked. And that way the canvas has less of a chance of touching it. I'm going to take these fantastic cups that we have. I love these, they're so multifunctional. And you can also rinse them at the end if you want to reuse them. A lot of this stuff, that is one thing I definitely would love to encourage, is that you rinse it out and reuse it for future projects. Okay, so we're going to put them in each corner upside down. And this is gonna act as like a stand for the canvas. This last cup is really important. I'm doing 9 through 12, so I'm gonna do a more advanced version. But if you'd like to, if any of the artists would like to, especially for K through 5th grade, to squeeze your paints into this cup first, it's going to be very helpful for them to pour the paint and also to have a little bit more control of the bottle as they squeeze the paint out. Okay, that's totally described in the younger manuals. Okay, so I've got that set up here. I'll take my canvas. So typically when I go to the main part of the lesson, I would just put the canvas right here, okay? We're going to do a practice paper first, so I can just show you what that part of the lesson is. So after our pacing guide here, let's see here, we are going to take it to the section where the students would, where is it here? The students are first going to learn how to practice and test the paint. As an abstract painter and as a fluid artist, it's really important to test your paint, and a big part of making this style of art is the control of your water, your paint mediums, and your paint, of mixing them together, seeing how the paint interacts, because the great thing about this style of art is that you can put a lot of prep into it and then you get to let it go and see what it does on its own. And so it's important for the artist to practice with the paint to see how it moves. It's not quite the same as normal acrylic paint. So I'm just going to save that part I'll do the actual canvas and you can see how it moves. But the piece that I'll be using for that normally, if we were to go through, where did it go? Where did I put that paper? Well, let's see if I can find it. Aha, here it is. This paper here, it's watercolor craft paper. So this is what the student would be practicing on. So I'll show you a little bit of it. Okay, so if we wanted to test out how our paints are gonna interact, especially the whites to the blues, I would just drop out a little bit of paint, okay? And it's important also, I shook all of these up to shake these before you drop them in. And let's see, I wanna see what the bright turquoise looks like next to the royal blue. So I'll put a little bit next to it. And I don't wanna use too much paint for this section because I don't want to use up all my paint. I want like the most paint I can possibly have to make a really drippy, wet piece. Let's see here. Great. Okay, so those are our blues, and I encourage students to drip and drizzle the paint in any direction in any way that they want. This is all about practice and play in this section. I'll shake this one up, give it a good shake, 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 shake. All right. Okay. So this white bit right here, if you can see it properly, that is acting as the foam of the wave. This is what kind of gives it a wave effect. And this is also a really important point of this whole lesson, is that we're going to use what we call a swipe tool. Now the swipe tool is a little bit heavy, and any tool can be used to create this effect that is going to drag across the paint. And the important thing is that the dragging effect is very light. We don't want to smear, if you can see on my skin, we don't want to smear the paint. We just want to draw it across each other to create this wave-like effect. So this is also a great point for experimenting with this paint, and there's no wrong way of doing it. So if you make what you think an oops, it might be a beautiful new addition to your painting that no other artist has. So it's all about experimentation, all about play. There's no wrong way to do it, but if you would like that wave effect, just to practice on your own skin, feeling it very lightly pull across. And what was I gonna say? Oh, there is another video online all about breathing. I do find as a fluid artist, it's really important to incorporate your breath into what you do. I'll oftentimes find myself when I'm painting, taking a breath and doing a movement. So every movement, as still and as calm as I am, it will reflect in my painting. So without further ado, I am going to now pull this across. Cool. All right, that is just one small example of what this can do. I'll hold this up so everyone can see. So the paint is gorgeous. I do love that we found a paint that will create these cellular spaces within. And see how it's kind of white right there? That's okay. That's just a practice. And even if that was to happen in the actual painting, there's lots of tricks you can do. You can move the paint around, you can play. You could come back in with some more paint if you wanted and drag it across again. It's all about experimentation. Okay, so this is where those paper towels come in super handy. We always want to wipe our swipe tool off. And if you have access to a sink, it's really great to be able to rinse things off or to make a damp paper towel. One of the paper towels of, I think we get 5, one of those paper towels can be damp. Okay, I'll fold that up. Also, hands may get messy. Hand washing is definitely encouraged, but it's part of the fun. And if anyone is sensitive to having paint on their hands, I would recommend gloves or just knowing that hand washing is very close by. Okay, so here's our little practice piece. If I was going to go through the whole lesson, I would do a few more tests of that for the older kids, and for the younger kids, they do have their own version of this where they get to practice with the colors and how they pour the colors, how they pour the white and the sand as well. After that, they'll draw out their seashells and work on their composition in a mini piece. So they get 2 pieces to practice with and take home. Okay, so I'll put this to the side. All right, so one thing that this lesson does focus on that I truly do love is composition. As a fluid artist, this is a piece of mine here. As a fluid artist, I'm constantly thinking about how the movement of the piece and the shapes that I use, how it affects the viewer. Now, there's not always a full way of knowing, but you can experiment and play to see by just changing the composition of how large something is on your piece of paper or where it's placed or certain lines within the piece, how it makes the viewer feel, where it makes them focus, and there's a lot of power in that. So this is a great part, in my opinion, to teach students about why placing their objects in certain areas may have an effect on the viewer or on the whole art piece. They get to experiment and try out their ideas for their own composition, where the wave will be placed. And in some of the examples that you might find online, all of the waves are slightly different placements across the page. So it's really up to the student of how much sand they want, how much wave they want, and where they want their seashells to be in the end. Okay, now here comes the fun part. I am going to show you how to do the first leg of this painting. All right, I love this part. This is my favorite part. The whole reason I fell in love with fluid art was by watching it and how calming it was, and then getting to do it, I just didn't want to stop. Okay. Thank you, Nick. Yes, I think it is. Welcome and jump in. This is fascinating. I do love watching this happen. I think there's so many wonderful techniques for fluid art, and I love that students are able to learn in an accessible way with this lesson. Okay, I'm gonna shake, shake, shake. I'm going to create my first wave line with this. And the manual takes you through every step that I'm going to do here. So I'm going to create my first wave line. And I let's see, where do I want to do? I could do it fully across the page here. I could make a little one. I think I'm going to do a big diagonal because I haven't done that yet. And every student can choose if they want a straight line or a wavy line. And I'm just going to go for a wavy. All right. It's very freeing too, in my opinion, to go through all of this. You just get to have fun, make mistakes. And one thing I also really love about MoxieBox, I still learn as an artist. Every time I get to sit down and make a MoxieBox, I learn. And it gets me to think in new ways. And I think something I love about it is that if I make a mistake, it's okay. That's part of the learning process. I find in life, we don't have a lot of chances to make mistakes. And in our art practice, that is a whole part of learning and having fun, is by making mistakes. So I'm going to pull this across, and I'm just going to follow the line of, there we go, of my painting, of the first one that I did. Okay, I'm going to show you a few different techniques as well of ways that you can pour this paint throughout this, and it'll really show you how much you can have fun with it and choose your own adventure. So this first time I'm going to follow the line I just did. And this is what typically I prefer as an artist, is to create the lines this way. But I would like to challenge myself in the future and do some more pours that are not following the lines. And I will say it is important for the paint to touch each other as much as possible. You can also do this technique where you just pour in crazy ways all over the paper, have fun with it. Let the paints really interact and mix. And in the practice step, this is where students get to play with this too and figure out the technique that they want to use. Okay, I'm going to do some of that. I'm going to pick up this and let it run around. And see how I'm letting all of the paint touch each other? I want it to do that, and that way we don't have any gaps in our wave when we swipe the white paint across. Okay, and if it's not quite perfect and it's not running all over, that's okay. We can always fill it in with a few paint dots afterwards. Okay, so the third technique I'm going to show you is using this cup. This is what some of the younger lessons are going to be doing. So you're going to pour the paint in here. Any pattern will do. I'm going to go back to the pattern that I was using of the royal blue, the turquoise, and this is the dark blue. And I'll just repeat that a couple times. Royal blue, turquoise, and dark blue. One thing I do love about creating this style of art too is I love putting on music in the background. So of course I won't do it today because I'm talking to you all, but typically while I'm doing this, it gets to be a very calming, meditative sort of practice, and I get to reflect on my day, my thoughts, and let my creativity fly. So after I poured the paint into this cup, it does make it a lot easier to just pour it straight onto the canvas, which is why we have the little ones do that technique. Okay? And I'm just going to fill out the rest of this with any paint. Pour it on to the canvas. Awesome. Okay, add in the other colors. And I'm just making sure I cover up all the white spaces that I see. And for the edges, we can tilt the canvas to, oh, there's one. We can tilt the canvas to make sure all those all go away and they're all nicely covered. It's okay if they show at the end, but I do think it looks really nice to have all the edges met. Okay, so I'm gonna let it run, and don't worry if it's dripping onto, you can see it's been dripping down there. That's part of the process, and that's why we have this plastic sheet down, so that all of it stays contained within the sheet. I'm letting it run and drip, and this is also really fun too because the artist gets to very slowly test their paint and watch the movement of it. Okay, professional painters that use this, professional artists that use fluid paint, they'll mix their own paint mixes, and this is a fun part to see whether or not your ratios and your mixes did well. Okay, so here's some of the fun part. It's all fun. I'm gonna take the white now. Here's our wave. Okay, and I'm going to make sure this white paint follows the blue paint and touches it too. That's another important thing. We want all the paints to touch. All right, so let's see, I'll come from this corner. Let it drizzle, drizzle, drizzle. Okay. There we go, all across that way. Great, okay. Now, you have two options of what you'd like to do here. Sometimes I'll put a second layer of white just to make sure I've got lots of it. I think I put on plenty this time. As an artist, I do also really enjoy putting one more buffer line of paint up against the white, just to make sure there's lots of beginning paint to pull across. So I just make it a little bit thicker. Okay, now, here's the breathing part, here's the calm part, and here's the no mistakes part, okay? The only mistake you could probably make is not wiping off your swipe tool if you want each wave to start with white. So, make sure my swipe tool is nice and cleaned off. Okay, and I'm going to start, on this edge today. I'm going to find the edge of the tool that works best with my wave area that I'm going to pull for first. Okay, so I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm just going to lightly take it across this paint. Okay, so just a little bit there. See, it's just a little bit, and that's because it's kind of at a weird angle. That's okay. Now I'm going to take a wider piece here, and I'm going to drag it across this wider piece. Now, any of the parents that are watching this, and you may be watching this after the fact, feel free to heart in the chat if you have ever tried this before, if you've seen it online, this style of painting. Okay. Let's take this side. Give it a little wiggle. And when you're guiding your students through this lesson, and your artists, it's a lot of fun to give it a little wiggle and give the wave a little wiggle. Okay, now let's do another one here. Yeah, that's a nice one. Cool. Ooh, the bubbles are already forming. I have had a few artists create this lesson with a second wave too, which I thought was very neat. So there's so many variants you can do, and just have fun with it. It's your wave, it's your ocean. Okay, last pull or two, and then we'll move on to the next step. I just love how this looks, the dark deep blues with turquoise. Let's see. I wish I could ask you all which side you think I should use for each area. Okay, so that one had a nice little wiggle there. Okay. All right, last pull. And if it helps too, you can also pull this out of here a little bit. Here we go. Ready? All right, awesome, awesome. I think what I'm gonna do is just a little touch-up pull over here, just to make sure this all looks like an ocean wave to me. Great, okay. I'm going to take this and make sure this is really cleaned off. This is something where a damp paper towel would come in handy. Because we're going to be switching our color palette over to the sand colors, and I would It's okay if blue gets in there a little bit, but it does look nice when it's nice and clean. Okay. All right, so now that we painted our wave, we're going to go back in for the sand. Now, this does take about a day, sometimes up to 2 days, depending on the humidity in your area and the heat and all that kind of stuff. So I have some pre-prepared ones just to show you at the end, once we've painted the sand, of what it turns out in the end. Okay, so now we're going to do our sand time. This one's really fun, pretty free for all. This is a different technique. You can use your cup again if you've rinsed it to pour a mix of these two sand colors. We've got gold and tan. You can put it into the cup and then pour it all over this remaining area. I'm going to just free pour it. So I'm going to do the gold first and just do whatever I feel like. It's very freeing. Just kind of squeeze it all out. See where it lands. Have fun with it. Okay, and then I'm going to go on top of it with my tan. My tan. Okay. All right. Cool. Ooh, maybe a little bit more tan. And one thing to also remember with any art style is every time you do it, you learn a little bit more. So this has been very experimental, and it continues to be every time. I'm still learning what I want to do every time I paint. Okay, so now we're going to take our swipe tool again, making sure, I dipped mine back in the blue, that it is very clean. Okay, make sure it's very, very clean. Nothing left, nothing's gonna smear. Okay, put that up here. Now I'm going to mix. This is a fun part, kind of free for all. I keep saying it's a fun part. I think everything's fun because I love this. Okay. I have to meet some of my other acrylic art friends. See who else is as obsessed with this as I am. Okay. I do find I tend to do a lot of nature-based art, and I think that the free side of this style lends itself really well, and especially because nature can sometimes be unexpected and a bit uncontrolled, it also mimics that too. So I'm using this kind of as a paintbrush, and I'm just spreading it all the way to the edges. It doesn't really matter what kind of, pattern comes through for this. As far as the bubbles, I think it looks beautiful regardless of how the cells turn out. And sometimes if I see some cool cells bubbling up, I'll try not to touch that area too much. Okay, and all the way to the edges. Cool, awesome. So you can see that there's some space with the white. What I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna wipe off my swipe tool. Make sure it doesn't dry on there, okay? Then I am going to take my white. I'm gonna do another wave of white coming through here. And this is the advanced version. So depending on what level your child is at, what grade level, or how confident they feel with approaching this technique, they don't have to do the section. Sometimes we just leave the wave as the swiped thing. There's another technique that we use for the 2nd to 3rd graders, where we pull the paint across with a damp paper towel. So that one is also a bit more accessible. It's easier with weight, so that you're not digging into the painting and you can just drag it across real easy. So that's also a great tip. If you're finding the purple tool is a little bit too heavy for you to use, you can also dampen a paper towel and just pull it across the canvas. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our dry swipe tool, and I'm going to pull that white out over the sand to kind of make another version of a wave, as if the wave was now bubbling out over the sand. Awesome, awesome. And if you're an older artist and you're looking at this and you're thinking, I want to do this for one of my lessons for this year for art, it's good to remember that to make your wave and your sand space big enough so that you can do both of these. So you have enough room to glue all your seashells on at the end. Okay, almost there. And I'm going quickly through all of this because I want to make sure we end on time. But it is so much fun to take your time, go slow, and just get really into the work you're creating. Okay. Alrighty. I don't know about you, but I feel very accomplished when I get messy painted hands. Feels good. Okay, so I'm gonna wipe off my swipe tool so I can clean it off and use it in the future. But it's basically all done. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it away so that I can show you. Oh, let's see, there we go. So that I can show you the rest of the project. Okay, it's very satisfying, Amanda. It's so satisfying. Especially because you get to play and figure out how you want yours to look. That's just my method, but I've loved seeing other artists take this lesson and put their own spin onto it. Okay. Even though it's just a wave, it can still be individualized. Just cleaning off my paints before I move all this over. All right, so I'm going to pick this up. Normally, I would just leave this here, or I would store it somewhere that it can dry for a day or two. And I will answer more questions at the end, but I know Nick had asked how long the paint takes to dry. Sometimes it takes a day, sometimes it takes up to 2 days. It kind of depends on your environment, of how humid it is and how hot it is as well. And because we're putting a lot of paint on a canvas, it's going to take a while for the whole thing to dry through and through. So I just recommend 2 days to make it easier. Okay, 5 minutes to go. All right. Okay, so I'll quickly go over this. We've got 5 minutes left. The end, when everything is all dry, you get to squeeze some glue onto your sand in wherever area you want. You open this up, you can use one of those cups that we use to dry, pour the sand into one of the cups and sprinkle it all over your canvas. And then the part that I love so much, this is where composition comes back in again, is that we get to choose the arrangement of our seashells. So we all get a big assortment of shells. Look how beautiful this one is right here. We all have a big assortment of shells and starfish that we can choose where we're going to put on our canvas. So pre-sand, this is what it looks like here. Just a flat painting. And then post-collage, post-sand, it's going to look like this. All right, so that's our finished project. I wanted to open this up for questions. I'm gonna take a look at the chat really quick and make sure that I didn't miss anything. And if you have any more questions about different lessons and you want to see what all we have to offer and all the materials that are included, say in this lesson, you can check out MoxieBoxArt.com. And that's where you can find the slideshows, any sort of support for teaching or learning, and MoxieU, which is for further engagement. For this lesson, I'm going to take this thing here. For this lesson, we have Pangea Seed, which is an amazing resource for students and artists that are looking to get more involved with ocean art. Okay, let's see here. What kind of questions do we have? Is fluid art paint different than regular acrylic paint? It is different. It's using acrylic paint, so that's, sorry, not quite the right answer. It is acrylic paint, but it has things added to it, which makes it fluid. So you can either put just water or just a pouring medium. And yeah, if you can put both of them together, so all three, water, pouring medium, and acrylic paint, and that's what creates the flow. All right, I think that's everything. let's see here. Thank you all so much for visiting, and I hope that you find this enriching, and I hope that your students and your children and all your young artists enjoy any type of art they get their hands on, especially if it's MoxieBox art. And I'm so glad you could join me today. I hope you had fun. I certainly did, and I love sharing what this is. All right, bye everyone. Have a great week, and happy Idea Fair.